In the last video, we talked about Google's upcoming helpful content update. And in this video, I'm going to share my framework for a helpful content audit. And the big question that we want to answer with our site is this useful? That's a very simple principle that we can anchor our SEO efforts on. And I've taken Google's recommendations and filtered them down into somewhat of a checklist that we can use to perform a helpful content audit. Now, for a long time, I have, in my SEO workshops, I've always recommended that people look at the search quality rater guidelines. And these are guidelines that Google created for humans to evaluate different search results. And those guidelines are primarily based on something called EAT, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, or authoritativeness and trustworthiness. And those are the core kind of signals that determine whether the content is worth ranking or not, right? Is this something that we want to show our users? Is it coming from a source that is an expert, an authority, and trustworthy, right? So the helpful content update is just another iteration of this. And I think the questions that we have here in this audit are useful in and of themselves, because it's much more clear now that the end goal is we want to satisfy humans. We want to satisfy our future potential customers and clients, and we can do that through search. If instead of trying to appeal to the search engine, which has become a lot smarter and more human-like itself, let's just appeal to humans and trust that the search engine is now smart enough to identify whether this content that we're creating is really helpful. All right, so let's get into it. The first question is, who is your audience? This is high level. I'm sure you know this by now, but I think it's always a good reminder to come back to, because sometimes things change. Sometimes your business grows, it evolves, and your audience shifts. And so this is kind of just basic marketing, but it still applies. But taking it one step further, what is their primary goal, and what is their primary goal when it comes to search? So for me, my primary audience is Squarespace designers, people who have made a few Squarespace websites and are looking to either increase their skill sets or learn more about the platform, or really just solve client-specific problems that they don't have the expertise to solve on their own. So when they go to Google, they are searching primarily for solutions to Squarespace problems, right? So that's how I satisfy that. But it's really important for me to keep that top of mind when I'm creating new content, or if I'm optimizing content, because if I deviate from that, then I'm also deviating from my ability to give Google a clear signal on who my audience is and what they're trying to accomplish and how I help them accomplish that, which is the primary focus and purpose of my website, is to help Squarespace designers solve Squarespace problems, right? And funny enough, this is actually the first time I've articulated it out loud with such simplicity. So, again, this exercise never gets old. I've been doing variations of this since the beginning. And it's always good to bring you back to your core and what it is that you're really trying to accomplish. So what is your first-hand experience or expertise with this topic? Now, this is where your about page can become really handy in articulating your story around a particular topic, which can demonstrate your expertise in a much more dynamic and human way. What do I have? I don't have anything attached to that. How do you distribute this content directly to your audience? So are you just creating content with the expectancy that it will be found in Google, or are you also doing the legwork to distribute this content directly to your audience? This is something that I have slacked on occasionally, but I've always known that if I can't share this content directly with my audience, then it's probably not good enough for search. Now, I've also gotten away with that at times. However, the whole point of this audience is to bring us back to some of those SEO first principles. And so creating content for people first and getting it to them first is the number one priority, and then allowing the search engine to learn and get some information from that, and better serve your content to the people who would be best served by it. I think that is really ultimately the future here, is a kind of a personalization where the search engine has learned the searcher to a point where it knows the kind of content that it likes to be served up, right? Maybe someone, is more of a visual learner, and the algorithm learns that, okay, this person tends to slow down, slow their scroll when there are a lot of images, perhaps, right? I'm making that up. That's not written anywhere, but I think this is the direction that we're heading in. So there's never been a time where being specific and direct in your content creation, like there's never been a better time for that from an SEO perspective. All right, so now we get into a little bit more practical steps, which I call audit the drops. And so if we go into Search Console, Google Search Console, we can look at our performance trend over time. And if we start with the worst performing content, then we can simply evaluate those pages. It's a manual process. But looking at the pages that have zero traffic and saying, should we just prune this content? Like pruning content isn't a new SEO concept, but it's one that is now becoming more useful again, because Google is measuring the usefulness of the content on the site. So if there's no usefulness for something, it's actually weighing down on your potential. Once you've done that, compare dates, right? So compare the last 30 days to the previous 30 days, and then sort by click difference and position difference to see where there has been a drop off either on traffic or a drop off on a search position. And then dig into those trends specifically, or click into those queries specifically to see what the trend is, see what the position trend is, see what the traffic trend is, and then go to the page, switch tabs to the page, and then you can do your content checks. So I have a digital alchemy lab where I go into more details with this stuff. I'll put a link to that below. But for the purposes of this video, we're just going to keep moving. All right. So what is the goal behind this page? This is like web design 101. Every page should have a purpose. And the purpose should be to help your viewer, user, customer, client, whatever, accomplish something, achieve some kind of goal that is getting them closer to what it is they're trying to accomplish as a whole. So let's get into the quality checks. This is directly from Google's guidelines. and I'm going to speed through these. Does the content provide original information, reporting, research, or analysis? So a lot of this reminds me of high school, which is the last time that I had to do college, but I went to school for engineering, so there wasn't as many papers. Though in grad school, I did have a lot of papers to write, so I probably blacked those out. But it just reminds me of the rubrics that I would get back in my schooling days, right? Does the content provide substantial, complete, or comprehensive description of the topic? Does the content provide insightful analysis or interesting information that is beyond obvious? So if you have direct experience, this is a lot easier, right, than AI tools or a random writer who is just researching existing sources. If you have direct experience, then you can draw on your own experience as a source without copying or rewriting existing sources. Does the headline and or page title provide a descriptive, helpful summary of the content? So here, clarity is supreme. Does the headline and or page title avoid being exaggerating or shocking in nature? So no clickbait. Is this the sort of page you'd want to bookmark, share with a friend, or recommend? Right? So if you don't automatically want to share or recommend something that you create for your website, then that's kind of like a thing by itself. And I've actually had that experience. So would you expect to see this content in or referenced by a printed magazine, encyclopedia, or book? So that's the bar, right? We want to be referenced by encyclopedias. Do you have a way to measure satisfaction, right? So this is both for yourself, and there might be some direct SEO benefit, but either way, having a call to action in your content is a way for you to measure if people are actually, taking action or following through on the purpose of that page. Having room for comments, but engaging comment section. I have a lot of posts with 0 comments. Could probably improve that, right? Is this useful? If you go to any of Google's blogs and you get to the bottom of it, they have the thumbs up, thumbs down thing with the question, is this useful? And you can collect data that way that can help you better improve the content over time. Let's go into some expertise checks, right? So quality of the content. What about the expertise of the author? Does the content present information in a way that makes you want to trust it, such as clear sourcing, evidence of the expertise involved, background about the author or site that publishes it, such as through links to an author page or a site's about page? I'm not going to go into the rest of these, but basically, is your about page, are your author pages tight? Are there references within your content to other authoritative sources? Are we creating encyclopedia-worthy content? Presentation and production checks. So, this is our spelling, styling, grammar. Was the content produced well, or does it appear sloppy or hastily produced? All of that. Comparative questions. So here is actually where I spend a lot of time in the creation part, which is evaluating comparable content, right? So what else is showing up in the search results? Does your content provide substantial value in comparison to whatever else is out there? And the phrase substantial value, I like to think about value in terms of a change of state, meaning when someone first clicks through to your content, maybe they're confused, or maybe they are frustrated, or maybe they are curious, or maybe they're simply interested in something. But by the time they have either scanned or read through the content, they should be in a different state than they began. So if they started out frustrated, they should be maybe relieved, or if they started out confused, they should feel a sense of clarity or understanding. And the greater the degree of that change in state, in my opinion, is the greater the value of the content. Right? So keep that in mind whenever you see the expression, valuable content or whatever. It's like, is this creating a change of state, or is this facilitating someone's change from one state to the next? It doesn't have to be super dramatic, but if I hit a page frustrated and I leave it frustrated, guess what? There was no value there, right? So another thing is, this is where, again, the expertise comes back into play. Do you have a unique perspective? What is your angle that no one else has? That's going to come from, your unique perspective or the writers that you employ. Product reviews. I'm not going to go into this, but this is a great one to dig into on your own time. Evaluate the product from a user's perspective. So it's best to evaluate the stuff that you actually use. Let me check out another random one here. Ensure there is enough useful content in your ranked lists for them to stand on their own, even if you choose to write separate, in-depth, single product reviews for each recommended product. That's a big key right there. So anyway, like I said, I'm not going to get into all of the product review stuff, but for each page on your website, you essentially want to ask these questions and ensure that you have some of these things in place. So as I was putting this audit outline framework together, I also simultaneously captured some low-hanging fruit of my own, which was this is some stuff I still have to do, but across all, if you Google your name, right, you're going to get a page of stuff, right? It's going to be random social media profiles or whatever. But do those bios or do those descriptions align with the authority that you want to have online? Like, what do you want to be known for as the topic that you have authority in? For me, that was some low-hanging fruit. And so I searched my name, and then I logged into whatever profiles I could and edited those descriptions to reflect the topical authority that I want Google to know that I have, so that it can help in this whole useful content thing. All right, so let me know if you thought this was useful. If you did find it useful, leave a comment, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, what have you. If you want to go deeper and you want access to this mind map, then definitely check out the Digital Alchemy Lab, where I share all of this stuff in more detail. Yeah, peace.